Are you sure you're okay to fly this thing with me?
In seat 41B, a scruffy beard hid a big secret about the man sitting there. The plane suddenly hit a big wall of air, and the captain passed out. Then, a terrifying request came over the speaker. "Is there any fighter pilot on board?" The homeless man, who just wanted to disappear, had to stand up and fly the jet. The airplane, a massive 747, was flying high over the huge black Atlantic Ocean when it suddenly dropped. It was a fast, heavy fall that made everyone suck in their breath. Coffee that had spilled from a tray flew up into the aisle like brown drops of rain. People started praying quietly, and the sound of the thunder seemed to answer them. The thunder was super loud, like someone hitting the side of the plane with a giant fist. Then the sound came over the speaker system. The voice was broken and fuzzy, but the words were clear and full of fear. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need help right now," the voice pleaded. "Anyone with experience in the military or flying fighter jets, please tell us who you are." The lights inside the big cabin started to blink, turning on and off quickly. The row numbers above the seats flashed red and green. In seat 41B, a man finally lifted his head. His name was Sam Walker. For just a moment, one quick heartbeat, Sam didn't move at all. He just sat there. He hoped the scary voice would stop. He hoped someone else would stand up. He hoped the plane would just fly straight again and leave him alone. But then the 747 dropped again. This time, it dropped even harder. The oxygen masks, the yellow plastic things, started shaking above their seats. A child, somewhere in the middle of the plane, started to cry out loudly. She was calling for her dad, but he wasn't there to hug her. Sam Walker had never planned to be on any plane that day. He definitely never planned to be on this plane, fighting a terrible black storm high above the ocean. He had been living a quiet life, a life where he tried to be invisible to everyone. Just that morning, a kind lady from a charity group had found him at the airport. Sam had helped the charity clean up a shelter a long time ago. She had a ticket voucher that no one else was going to use. "It stops working tonight," she told him, her eyes soft and kind. "If you can get to Boston, there's a job waiting for you there." The woman's eyes were the kind that could really see people, the kind that noticed the sadness and worry that others just walked past. Sam took the voucher. He put his worn backpack under the seat and folded himself into the chair, making sure he looked like no one important. He wanted to be invisible. That was his goal. Now, the speaker was begging again. The voice was cracking with panic. "Any fighter pilot, Air Force, Navy, anyone at all, please." The plane suddenly tilted way over to one side, and the cabin lights almost went out completely. In the first class section, up front, a man stood up. "I've flown many, many times in private jets," the man announced loudly. "I can surely help." A flight attendant named Sarah quickly ran up to him. Her voice was tight with stress. "Sir, we need military experience," she explained, breathing fast. The man pushed his chest out. "Flying is all the same," he argued, but another terrible jump of the plane cut him off. Overhead compartments, where people stored their luggage, flew open with a loud metal scream. Sam swallowed hard. He did not want to stand up. He did not want to be seen. He did not want to remember the things he had worked so hard to forget. He did not want to have to explain why his hands, even though they were rough and dirty from sleeping outside, still knew exactly what to do with the plane's controls. He did not want to remember the old days, the checklists he used to whisper, the smells of smoke and fire. The speaker spoke again, but this time the voice was quiet, almost like a young person crying. "Please," it pleaded, "the captain is passed out. The co-pilot is alone." The wind and the air threw the plastic cups around the cabin like tiny pieces of paper. A woman near Sam quickly made the sign of the cross, her lips moving silently in prayer. A teenager, his hands shaking so much the phone blurred, was recording the whole scary event. A small red light blinked on the phone, watching everything. Sam closed his eyes. He saw a different cockpit. He saw a different storm. He saw a dry, sandy desert that was blowing with so much fury, it looked like an angry ocean. He had promised himself a long time ago that he would never fly again. No more looking back at the past. He had made that promise to the sky and to himself, but then the plane dropped again. It was a drop so hard it felt like his heart was being ripped out. The promise he had made was yanked away from him. Sam unbuckled his seatbelt. The red seatbelt sign glared at him. a bright warning. He completely ignored it. "Sit down," someone near him whispered, scared and angry. Sam stood up anyway. His knees were strong and steady, but his heart was beating a rhythm he knew too well, the fast, strong drum of a man who was getting ready to fly. He started moving up the aisle. The passengers' faces followed him, full of disbelief and confusion. "Hey!" the man Mr. Sterling barked from first class. "Back of the bus! Sit down!" Sarah, the flight attendant, stepped quickly in front of Mr. Sterling. Her eyes weren't mean, just worried. "Sir," she asked Sam, her voice low, "do you truly have the right experience?" Sam kept his voice very low, forcing it to be steady so it wouldn't shake. "Air National Guard," he said simply. "KC-135. Years ago." He named the huge military plane he used to fly. Sarah looked at him for a long, slow moment. The plane rattled again, shaking the storage bins above their heads. "Come with me," she finally said. And then, she added with great urgency, "Hurry!" The aisle parted for Sam as people quickly made a path for the man. Behind the strong, reinforced door, the cockpit was a small, intense world. It was filled with the sounds of alarms and the bright light of a stormy night. The co-pilot, a young man whose name tag read Leo, looked barely 30 years old. His face was bright with sweat, and he was shaking. Captain Davis was slumped over, still and silent, with an oxygen mask covering his mouth. His eyelids fluttered a little bit, but he did not wake up. "Low blood sugar, maybe a seizure," Leo stammered, trying to explain the captain's condition. "I can't talk to ATC, Air Traffic Control. The weather is blocking our signals. I've never—" Leo couldn't finish the sentence. Sam's hands found the back of the co-pilot's seat. It was a natural movement, like a man who had just been here yesterday, not a whole lifetime ago. "First," Sam told Leo, his voice becoming flat and calm, the voice of a commander. "Breathe." Leo sucked in a deep, shaky breath. "Then tell me what you have right now," Sam instructed. Leo took another gulp of air and forced himself to look at the instrument panels. Mach .79. Flight level 370. The strong side wind is really bad. Severe wind shear. "Okay," Sam said softly. Without even thinking, his hand reached out and silenced an alarm that was ringing too loudly. It was an alarm that didn't matter right now. "We are not going to try to beat this storm line," Sam said. "We are going through it, and we are going down." Leo stared at him, startled by the sudden calm in Sam's voice. "Through?" Sam pointed to the weather radar screen. "That little notch," he said. "See the gap between the storm cells? It won't last long. We take it now, or the storm will tear us up even worse." Leo hesitated. He was scared, but he nodded. The voice next to him sounded like it could actually see the wind, and that was enough. Sam's fingers moved close to the controls, but he didn't touch them. "You fly," he told Leo. "I will call out the moves." Sam leaned closer. His eyes quickly scanned all the instruments, looking at them like old, trusted friends. "Small movements," he instructed. "Keep the nose straight. Use the trim wheel. Don't fight the controls. Just guide them." In the cabin, the intercom suddenly sounded steadier. "Ladies and gentlemen," the voice of Sarah said, "we have assistance in the cockpit. Please remain seated." A long, slow breath went through the whole cabin. It was like everyone was breathing with one giant lung. Some people started praying louder. Mr. Sterling muttered under his breath, "We're finished if that guy's flying the plane." He said it softly, but loud enough to be heard. A child's voice, Ethan, piped up. "Is he a hero?" His mother quickly shushed him, tears filling her eyes. Near row 23, an elderly woman named Eleanor closed her eyes. She thought back to a different time, a time when she was young and a war was happening. She remembered saving food, telegrams, and the scary knock at the door that brought bad news. She whispered softly, "God uses strange messengers." Leo's hands were shaking less and less as the seconds passed. He focused on Sam's quiet voice. "ATC won't hear us," Leo said, his voice flat. "The satellite radio is too noisy." Sam nodded. "The storm is eating your radios," he confirmed. "Try the guard frequency." He told Leo to use the special emergency channel. If that doesn't work, send a message through another plane. Leo tried. All he got was loud static. He tried again. He heard a very faint voice, but it was quickly swallowed up by the noise of the thunder. "Okay," Sam said, tilting his head as if he could feel the air currents through the steel of the plane. "We will do this silent." He quickly looked over the fuel level, the flight plan, and the nearest places they could land: Dublin, Shannon, or Keflavik, if they had no other choice. "We need to get lower, below the worst of the ice," Sam explained. "Then we can try talking to people again." Leo swallowed hard. "Are you sure?" Sam almost smiled. "I used to be sure about everything," he said. "Tonight, I'll be happy with just being capable." Another hard jolt rattled the captain's oxygen mask. Sam checked on Captain Davis very quickly. He was not rough, but he was not gentle either. "His pulse is there," Sam reported. "Keep him warm." Sam took off his thin, used jacket without saying a word and spread it over Captain Davis's knees. Leo stared at him. "You don't need—" "He's the one who lands us if I'm wrong," Sam interrupted. "Let's not take chances with him." Through the front windshield, a wall of pure blackness had grown even blacker. Lightning cut across the horizon like the white, jagged bones of a dead thing. "All right," Sam murmured, his voice now a steady hum. "Left 5 now, hold it there. Trim 2 down. Good." Let the plane fly itself. The aircraft seemed to sigh. It obeyed the command. It felt like it didn't like it, but it obeyed again. The memory of flying was working in Sam's mind like a sudden bright lantern. He remembered cold, sleepless midnights, refueling fighter jets high over Iowa in freezing rain. He remembered the tanker planes shaking so hard that the coffee cups in the cockpit rattled. He remembered an instructor whose breath smelled like old tobacco and burnt rope. "Fly the plane, son, not the weather," the instructor used to say. He remembered a landing that went horribly wrong. Years ago, in a desert so bright the sun seemed to drain all the courage out of him. He had sworn that day that he was done. He had sworn the sky could keep its storms, and he would stay on the ground. But the sky, it seemed, had a strange way of finding him, even in grocery store lines or at soup kitchens. And now, here he was. "Watch the pitch," Sam quietly instructed. "Don't chase the airspeed, let it come to you." Leo nodded, focusing hard. He was a man borrowing Sam's calmness and strength. "You were in the guard?" he asked, trying to sound casual, but really needing to talk. "Yes, sir," Sam said. He did not say that he had been forced out. He did not mention that his reasons were chemical and shaped by grief, that a bottle of alcohol had held his wings for a long time. He did not say that walking back from that terrible time had taken much, much longer than learning how to fly a plane in the first place. In the dark glass of the window, his reflection made him look much older than he was. The plane didn't care about his past. It just wanted hands that knew. They found the notch. It wasn't like opening a door. It was more like finding a slightly thinner place in a huge dark wall of clouds. It was gray instead of pure charcoal black. Leo guided the plane into it. The controls felt alive in his hands. The air slowly began to calm down. The change was so small and slow that only people who had been deeply afraid for a long time could truly feel the difference. Sam let out a long breath. "Good," he said. "Now, drop another 1,000 feet. Slow down to 300 knots. Let's feel the layer of air below us." "We'll get ice on the wings," Leo warned, worry returning to his face. "We'll watch it, and we'll go through it fast," Sam countered. "Think of a knife, not a spoon." Leo managed a small, unwilling smile. "You talk just like my old chief." Ice started to form, curling like white sugar on the windshield wipers. Then, as they quickly changed height, the plane shrugged it off, and the ice shed away in a glittery shower. The radios cleared up just enough to make a stuttering noise. "Flight level 350, severe cell," and then the radio died again, sounding like pins hitting a tin can. Sam took a breath. He hadn't realized he had been holding it. "We're okay," he said. "Take a long minute. Do your checklists." Leo's hands were much steadier now. He flipped through the book, calling out items and answering them himself. His voice was becoming calm, like a slow-moving tide coming in. Sam kept his eyes fixed on the glass. "If we bounce, just ride with it," he instructed. "If we drop, ease the controls. If we climb, don't worry about it." Leo nearly laughed. "Do you teach flying?" "Not lately." In the cabin, Mr. Sterling's wife, Mrs. Sterling, gently touched his sleeve. "Richard," she whispered not unkindly, "maybe just sit down." He sat down, scowling. His anger was just a way to hide the terrible fear he felt. Sarah knelt next to Ethan, the boy with big, curious eyes. She promised him, "The pilots are very brave people." Ethan said seriously, "The man is brave too." Sarah smiled, trying to stop the lump in her throat. "Yes," she whispered back, "he is." The plane shuddered lightly, like a horse shaking off flies. Someone in the back started humming a religious song, too softly for anyone to hear but the person next to them. Two quiet voices, threading faith through the plane's recycled air. Leo glanced sideways at Sam. "How did you end up on this flight?" Sam's mouth twitched slightly. "Voucher," he said. Someone kind had one they couldn't use. He didn't add that he had almost given the ticket away twice. Once to a woman with a baby who was late for her flight, and again to a man whose hands shook just like Sam's used to. He didn't add that he had almost torn the voucher up at the door, scared of the fancy carpet, the polished shoes, and the way the airport people spoke with perfect practice smiles. "And you?" Sam asked Leo. Leo blinked. "Work," he said, and for a second, he looked 20 years old instead of 30. They finally broke out of the very worst part of the storm, like a swimmer who finds a calm section of water. Rain still hammered against the plane, sounding like a big bass drum on the metal skin. But the hits weren't as hard now. Leo's shoulders dropped an inch. He was finally relaxing a little. "Thank you," he said suddenly, his voice honest and unprotected. Sam shook his head. "Thank the wind for getting tired." A different light appeared far away, a soft amber glow, not lightning. It was the hint of air traffic control, a place where order and rules still existed. "We'll hear someone soon," Sam said. "When we do, you talk. You're the pilot. I'm just a roomer." Leo swallowed. "Sir, don't sir me," Sam cut in. His voice wasn't mean, just very tired. "I'm just the guy who didn't stay seated." Captain Davis stirred. It was a small sound beneath the hum of the air conditioning. Leo leaned over, filled with sudden relief. "Captain!" he called out. The captain's eyelids fluttered. He groaned. Sam watched his chest rise and fall. "Good," he said. "He'll be confused. Keep him on the oxygen." The radio crackled, but clearer now. The voice of a traffic controller cut through the static. 747 heavy, say call sign, say intentions. Leo grabbed the microphone like it was a lifeline. "Boston Center, this is Ocean Air 417. Captain passed out. Request directions and priority to go down." The controller took a long second to reply. "Ocean Air 417, Roger. Wait." "Here is where we earn our seats," Sam murmured to no one. He pointed to a clear gap in the scattered weather on the radar screen. "There," he said. "Ask for that clear path. We'll go down in steps. Watch the temperatures." Leo told the controller the request. He got approval. He nudged the plane lower. Frost formed on the edge of the window, then melted quickly, running down the glass like tiny streaky rivers in the dark. Sam had not wanted to be messed with again. Difficult times, the things that change a man, they have a way of leaving holes in your soul. But as the altimeter, the tool that tells you your height, started to count down and the air got smoother, an old, powerful joy began to wake up inside him. It was the joy of bringing people home. In row 41B, Sam's empty seat still held the shape of his body, a flattened pillow, a cheap paperback book with a corner folded down, a plastic cup of water. The passengers leaned forward, hungry for news that no announcement could give. They measured their hope by the slight shaking of the floor and the steady, calm tone of the voices they heard faintly from the front. Up front, Sam rested one hand on the back of the seat, steady as a nail hammered into an old wooden beam. "One more path left," he told Leo. "Then we're through, and the ground will start to believe in us again." The plane listened and did what it was told. The voice from Boston Center became steady, like a hand on a shoulder, guiding Ocean Air 417 toward a thinner band of clouds. The altimeter ticked down with small, disciplined clicks. "Go down and stay at 24,000 feet. Expect further clearance." Leo read the instructions back. His voice was still a little high, but he was in control now, guiding the plane like it was a living thing that he could trust, not a wild animal. Sam watched the instruments settle. The black horizon found a cleaner edge. In row 41B, the woman sitting next to the empty seat touched Sam's paperback book, as if touching a blessing. Leo pressed the microphone button to talk to the cabin. "Flight attendants, please be seated for the rest of the flight." A pause, and then Sarah's calm voice replied, "Copy." Sam imagined the flight attendants putting their trays away, holding hands and whispering quiet promises of safety across the armrests. He looked at Captain Davis, who was still breathing steadily but still out. "When we are past 20,000 feet, try him again," Sam said. Leo nodded, gently adjusting the power of the engines. The rain was no longer wild fists. It was just an annoyed patter against the windshield. The wipers made a soft, steady complaint. The airplane, no longer being insulted by the storm, seemed to remember its dignity and began to fly like a beautiful lady again. "Fuel status?" Sam asked softly. Leo checked the gauges. He did the math twice, then one more time, because fear is a terrible, shaky accountant. "Good for Boston with reserve. Providence and Hartford as alternates." "Keep those in your pocket," Sam said. "Storms make liars out of forecasts." A new controller spoke to them, a deeper, gravelly voice from the ground in Boston. Sam relaxed a tiny bit. He could feel land underneath all the blackness now, not the endless ocean. Land meant choices that didn't involve life rafts and flares, and the painful math of cold water. In the cabin, Mr. Sterling had stopped muttering. His wife, Mrs. Sterling, had slid her hand into his, and he let it stay there. His eyes were shiny with a childhood fear he had never admitted before. Ethan, the boy who had asked if the man was a hero, pressed his forehead against the window, watching the rain race down the glass. Eleanor, the elderly woman, coughed once, then returned to silent prayer. It was the quiet kind that only asks for mercy on stubborn people. Sarah, the flight attendant, tucked a blanket around a sleeping toddler and whispered, "Almost there, baby, almost." Leo's breath grew longer and steadier. "You talk like you never gave up flying," he said, looking at Sam. Sam's mouth twitched. "You never truly quit flying," he answered. "You just stop writing it down." He didn't mention that the cockpit felt like a confession booth, a home, and a battlefield he had promised never to visit again. He didn't say that the deep hum under his bones was both a comfort and an accusation. Instead, he pointed to a pale smudge on the radar screen. "That's our clear path. Ask for a left turn to 210 degrees, then a shallow descent through 18,000 to 4,000 feet. We'll get below the worst shaking." Clearance came quickly, like permission to finally breathe out. Leo eased the plane to the left. The nose followed easily. "Good," Sam murmured. The word was meant for the plane as much as it was for the men. Captain Davis stirred again. His eyelids fluttered, and his hand twitched against the oxygen tube. "Captain!" Leo tried again, louder. A groan came out, a blank, confused noise. "Easy," Sam said, his voice firm, like a doctor's. "You had a spell. Leo's flying. We're through the rough air heading for Boston." The captain's eyes found the altimeter, then the weather radar, and finally Sam's face. He nodded once, a leader accepting that the fight had moved on without him. They quickly talked through the landing plan, using few words. ILS to runway 27. The glide slope was active. They planned for a missed approach, a way to fly away and try again, if the instruments acted strangely. "You fly, I'll call," Sam said to Leo. He could feel the captain getting ready to take back control, but no one would shame him for staying rested. Leo's cheeks flushed with both nerves and pride. "Aye," he said. The single word landed like a salute. At 14,000 feet, the clouds started to break apart. Small patches of lighter gray started to sneak into the endless dark. Boston approach came on the radio with a calm, dry voice. "Ocean Air 417, reduce speed to 250 knots. Go down and stay at 10,000 feet. Expect the localizer for runway 27. Leo read the instructions back, then looked at Sam. Sam nodded. "Good. Picture the runway, even if you can't see it yet. Build it in your head. The rabbit lights, the runway markings, the black river running underneath." Leo's shoulders relaxed a bit more. He could almost see it. In the galley, Sarah, the senior flight attendant, tucked a loose curl of hair behind her ear and allowed herself 3 seconds of stillness. Then she picked up the speaker microphone. Her voice was like honey poured over a bruise, sweet and soothing. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are on our way down," she announced. "Please remain seated, seatbelts fastened low and tight. We will be on the ground soon." She wanted to add, "Someone heard your prayers," but her training and modesty kept the words inside. She glanced forward at the door that hid a man who was steadying a giant jet with just his words. At 9,000 feet, the ice protection system flickered and held steady. The windshield now showed a world made of dark, wet velvet and distant, scattered lights that looked like pearls. Captain Davis cleared his throat. His voice was small but ready to work. "I can take the radios," he offered, humbling himself without a fuss. "Do it," Sam said. "Leo has the hands. You have the words." The captain swallowed his pride with a sip of water and pressed the microphone button. "Approach, Ocean Air 417 with you, passing 10,000 feet. The controller answered like they were old friends who had skipped one awkward year. Familiarity, even when it's pretend, is a kind of mercy. At 7,000 feet, they caught their first real hint of Boston, a bright amber smear where the city held its lamps up against the rain. Somewhere down there, a woman was washing dishes, thinking her husband was late coming home. Somewhere a nurse was tying her hair tighter and tightening her hope. Somewhere a man in a doorway counted his blessings and found himself 3 short. But he still smiled anyway. Sam felt the pull of the ground in his jaw. A change in pressure that had nothing to do with the plane's height and everything to do with the lives you could now touch with a shoulder, not just a wheel. "Localizer is alive," Leo said. His voice was a steady clock now. Sam's fingers stayed close, never touching, like a coach who knows that too much help steals the victory. "Glide slope armed. Approach mode." The needle on the instrument started to quiver and came to life. "Capture," Leo breathed, as if trying not to scare the delicate instrument. The airplane began its careful, obedient slide down the invisible stairs of the sky. "Gear down," Captain Davis said, his strength coming back like color returning after a faint. Leo called for the flaps to be extended, one step at a time. The plane's wings responded with a sturdy feel. Outside, the rain made halos around the runway lights. Inside, 3 men made a choir of competence. In row 41, the woman beside Sam's empty seat whispered, "He's up there." Ethan, the boy across the aisle, nodded seriously, as if the confirmation was his to give. Mr. Sterling pressed his fingers to his eyes for a quick moment. Then he dropped his hands and stared forward. The look on his face was different now. Not scorn, not bragging, but something closer to an apology he wasn't yet ready to say out loud. Eleanor unclasped her hands, flexed her stiff fingers, and began humming again. This time, it was a soft lullaby her mother had sung when air raid sirens told them to be brave and quiet. At 5,000 feet, the runway approach lights finally woke up out of the mist, a long line of marching white light. "Got them," Leo said. It wasn't a shout or a whisper. It was a statement a man makes when he recognizes a friend he thought he had lost forever. "Keep the correction coming," Sam said. "The wind is from the right. Don't fight it. Lean with it. Small movements, very small." Captain Davis handled the radios like a great musician now. He had enough energy back to lead the dance. "Ocean Air 417 cleared to land, runway 27. He read the message back and wanted to add, "Thank you, but professionalism wears a plain suit when it's working correctly." At 1,000 feet, the world narrowed down to the instruments and the deep, alive hum of a machine that needed both reassurance and command. "Stable," Leo said. "Continue," Sam answered. His eyes never left the picture he had asked Leo to build in his head 10 minutes ago. He could feel the cabin behind them like a single held breath. He could feel the paperback book in row 41B waiting for its reader. He could feel Mr. Sterling's wife squeezing his hand. He could feel the boy's faith like a small, warm lantern. He could feel the captain ready to take over if fate asked him to. At 500 feet, a sudden stubborn gust of wind shouldered the plane sideways. Leo corrected, then corrected his correction, his hands learning grace under pressure in real time. "Good," Sam murmured. "Don't chase, invite." At 300 feet, the rain thickened for a moment. At 200 feet, it thinned out again, as if the clouds had decided they were done for the night. The rabbit lights, the flashing white lights along the runway, strobed their impatient welcome. "Minimums," Leo said, his voice suddenly too loud in his own ears. "Runway in sight," Sam answered. "Land it." And there it was. Permission, blessing, and responsibility folded into 2 words he hadn't spoken to a student in a very long time. The wheels kissed the wet asphalt with that shy, hopeful thump, that tells you rubber has finally met a promise. The reverse thrust of the engines roared. The spoilers, metal flaps on the wings, shrugged up. The airplane settled like a big animal finding soft grass after walking on hard rock. Leo's laugh burst out, half a sob, half pure joy. Then he quickly muffled it, because professionals do not whoop on the radio frequency. "Welcome back," Sam said, and he wasn't talking to the jet. Captain Davis's hand found Leo's shoulder and stayed there a second longer than the rules required. Somewhere in the back, someone clapped twice, then stopped, embarrassed, because they remembered they weren't at a movie theater. They rolled clear of the runway. "Ocean Air 417, turn left at Bravo, contact ground control," the tower instructed. The captain took the radios without being asked. His voice was strong again. Leo taxied the huge plane with great care. Every light was like a star, every painted line on the ground a hymn. Sam finally exhaled the breath he'd been holding behind his teeth. His hands started to shake now that they didn't need to be steady. He tucked them under his thighs, a trick he had learned when the body demands payment for too much adrenaline. Leo looked over, his eyes bright and wet. "Sir, Jack," he corrected gently. "Just Jack." Leo nodded like he was storing the name in a safe place. In the cabin, the applause started at the back. It was shy, then it became stubborn, and then it became unanimous. Everyone was clapping. Mr. Sterling stood up. Not to take credit, but because he wanted to be the kind of person who stands up for the right thing, at least once in his life. Sarah, the flight attendant, felt her eyes flood with tears. She laughed at herself and didn't care. Ethan, the boy, said, as if making it true, "The man saved us." Eleanor, the elderly woman, dabbed her cheeks with a tissue and whispered, "Bless him." At row 41B, the paperback book waited patiently for a hand that had just landed a huge airplane without touching a single switch. They parked at the gate. The jetway, the tunnel that connects the plane to the building, crept forward like a cautious animal. The final checklists were done. The captain finished the ritual of shutting down the engines. Leo unbuckled with hands that would be steady for a very long time now. Sam stood in the doorway between two worlds, the cockpit and the cabin. It was a short step of aluminum, but it felt longer than a lifetime. He looked at the captain, at Leo, at the rain silvering the window. "You brought them home," he said to Leo. Leo shook his head. "We did." Sam almost argued, but instead, he nodded once and turned toward the cabin. The cabin door swung inward, and the night air rushed in, damp and honest, smelling of rain and jet fuel and solid ground. Passengers stood up too quickly, then sat down again at Sarah's gentle insistence. It was a dance of relief and impatience. Sam paused at the threshold. He wasn't sure if he had permission to cross the border. Leo touched his sleeve. "They should see you," he said softly. Sam shook his head, then looked at the faces, tired, shiny with tears, completely human. He stepped through, letting the plane introduce him without a single word. The applause rose again. It was less frantic now, more deeply grateful, like the sound people make in church when the baby finally falls asleep. A child leaned over a seat back, eyes wide with wonder. Eleanor pressed a tissue to her mouth and said, "Thank you, son," with the authority of someone who had survived decades purely on gratitude. Mr. Sterling worked his jaw. Then, awkward, imperfect, but sincere, he stuck out his hand. Sam hesitated, then took it. "I was wrong," the rich man muttered. Mrs. Sterling squeezed Sam's other hand and added the words her husband could not say. "We're sorry." On the jetway, airport workers in bright vests tried to hold back a small crowd of people with cameras. News of the emergency had spread faster than the baggage carts. The flight attendants formed a gentle wedge, protecting the crew's path. A reporter shouted, "Name, are you the passenger who helped to land the plane?" Sam flinched at the camera flash. Leo instinctively moved between Sam and the bright lights. "Give him breathing room," Captain Davis said, his voice stronger now, command settling back onto his shoulders like a favorite coat. The crowd quieted down. Sam stared at the floor. In the gate area, the airline station manager rushed over, forcing a practiced smile onto his face. "Sir, Mr." He struggled to find the name. Sam helped him. "Miller," the manager recovered. "Mr. Miller, on behalf of, well, everyone, thank you. We would like to offer—" Sam held up a hand. "Please, not yet." The manager blinked, completely confused. Leo stepped in, translating. "He will talk later." The manager nodded, corrected. Nearby, a family found each other, sobbing, laughing, and holding on tight. Ethan, the boy from row 18, gave Sam a solemn salute, then hugged him around the waist before Sam could stop him. "You were brave," the boy said. Sam's mouth twitched. "We tried." They were led to a small conference room that smelled faintly of old coffee and carpet cleaner. Someone brought water. Someone else brought a tray of sandwiches that no one wanted to eat. A company nurse checked Captain Davis again, saying he was lucky and stubborn. Legal people took notes. The public relations PR team started writing a statement for the press. Through it all, Sam sat on the edge of a folding chair, his backpack at his feet. It felt heavy and familiar. There was an old dull ache in his chest. He wished his old dog, Scout, could appear and lay a heavy head on his knee, anchoring him to something that wasn't fluorescent light and hard questions. "Mr. Miller," a woman from the airline's PR team began gently, "we are writing a press release. May we include your name?" Sam rubbed his hand over his face, buying time. Names have gravity. He had learned that on nights when giving his name to the police meant no peace, and keeping it secret meant sleeping quietly. Leo caught his eye. "You choose," he said simply. Sam inhaled, tasting the paper and coffee in the fading rain. "Use it," he finally decided. "But the story is not about me. It's about people doing their jobs, and a lucky clear spot in a mean sky." The PR woman nodded, a little moved, and quickly crossed out 2 overly dramatic adjectives in her statement. Captain Davis insisted on standing up to shake Sam's hand. "You saved my crew," he said. "No extra fancy words. No ceremony." Sam looked at Leo. "We saved them." The captain's eyes warmed. He liked men who shared credit, like farmers share a fresh loaf of bread. "If you ever want a jump seat in the cockpit again," he added, "it's there for you." Sam's smile was small and private. "I won't push my luck." But the invitation slipped into a pocket where he kept 3 old pennies, a faded photograph, and the other small things that proved he existed to more than just a census taker. By dawn, the storm at the airport had shrunk to a sullen, quiet drizzle. The airline offered Sam a nice hotel room, a car, and a very soft, fancy bathrobe. Sam said no to the car and the robe. He accepted the room because Leo, who had learned not to take no for an answer from the weather or fate tonight, pressed the keycard into his hand and said simply, "Sleep." In the elevator, Sam watched his reflection, the years, and had a strange thought. The man in the mirror looked like a missing person, found after a long time, maybe less alive than the memories of him, but more needed than anyone had expected. He slept without dreams. He woke up with a deep, honest hunger, the good kind that means your body remembers it has work to do. The TV in the corner murmured, showing news reports. The storm, the wet runway, the headlines, "Helpless hero, helps land transatlantic flight." Someone had capitalized compassion wrongly, and Sam almost laughed. He turned the volume down and ate an apple from the courtesy basket like it was a lesson in gratitude. By the time he finished, the whole world had given him a name. He wasn't sure he wanted what came with that name. Downstairs, Leo waited in the lobby. He was holding 2 coffees in a paper bag that smelled like eggs and pepper. "Thought you'd run off," he said, half joking, half true. Sam shrugged. "I've run enough." They sat by a window, watching the wet taxis blur by. Leo cleared his throat. "I asked around. The guard confirmed you. Your instructor wrote about you like you were his favorite headache." Sam snorted. "He smoked too much and swore like a poet." Leo grinned. The sound of their shared laughter loosened something inside Sam. For a moment, they were just 2 pilots, eating a bad breakfast and sharing a better silence. "Come to recurrent training with us," Leo blurted out, surprising even himself. "Sit in the simulator, talk to the new pilots about what the book tries to say, but can't." Sam stared at the steam rising from his coffee, as if the answer might appear there. "I haven't been anyone's example in a long time," he admitted. Leo leaned in closer. "You were last night." Sam swallowed. Pride and fear make a very noisy song together. He listened until the notes settled. "One session," he finally said. "No promises." Leo's wide grin was bright enough to shame the gloomy weather outside. The airline's gift came in a neat envelope, a year of travel vouchers, a prepaid credit card, and a formal, earnest letter. Sam turned the card over in his fingers. He remembered a different card he had once refused to take from a different kind of rich man years ago. He remembered what he had learned about dignity and accepting kindness. He looked at the letter again. "We are grateful. Please let us be." He nodded to no one. "Okay," he agreed. "I'll take the room, but on my terms." He tucked the envelope beside the photo and the pennies. Outside the terminal, the rain had thinned to a fine mist. He caught a public bus that made many stops and saw people he recognized. The night cleaners with tired feet, the line cooks with raw knuckles, the nurse clutching her coffee like a prayer. A woman glanced at him twice, then 3 times, and then asked shyly, "Are you?" Sam offered a small shrug and a smile. "We all are," he said, and she laughed. The idea landed exactly where it needed to. Leo texted him the addresses: a classroom, a simulator bay. The room buzzed when Sam walked in. Whispers followed him, curiosity. The late-night headlines made flesh and blood. He cleared his throat and started talking about the things that truly mattered. Fly the plane, breathe, use the trim wheel instead of wrestling with the controls, build the runway in your head before the clouds admit it exists. He told them what the book of rules didn't, about the shame that rides in the seat next to you, about the grief that fogs the instruments and that no checklist can clear, about asking for help before the plane starts to stall. No one took notes for a minute. Then, everyone did. Leo stood in the back and forgot to blink. Afterward, a new first officer, a young woman of 23 trying hard to look older, hung back. "I panicked once," she confessed. "Not in the simulator, in life." Sam nodded. "Me too," he said. "I learned that panic is just fear running very fast. You can always walk it out." She laughed, surprised by the permission. When she left, Leo clapped Sam on the shoulder. "They needed that," he said. Sam looked away. So did I. He hadn't realized how hungry he had been for usefulness, the kind that didn't ask him to disappear into the shadows when the work was done. The press tried again. A morning TV show wanted tears. A magazine wanted his story to be dramatic and glamorous. Sam agreed to one last interview, right there in the hotel lobby, on the condition that they kept the focus on the co-pilot and the flight attendants. He talked about Leo's bravery, his fast learning, and his ability to trust. He talked about Sarah's calm voice and Captain Davis's steady leadership once he was awake. He kept the spotlight off himself, letting his own quiet words tell the story of a man who had been lost and was now, finally, standing still. The next day, Sam decided to walk to his new job in Boston. He didn't take a car. He walked through the city streets, a place of tall buildings and busy people. He walked past places where he might have slept before. He felt the invitation for the jump seat in his pocket, next to the photo and the pennies. He felt the new card, a promise of stability he hadn't known existed. He knew he wouldn't fly a 747 again. That was a memory, a moment that had burned clean and bright. But he also knew he wouldn't hide in seat 41B ever again. The sky had found him, and the ground had welcomed him back. He reached the shelter where he was supposed to work. The woman who had given him the voucher was there. Her eyes were still kind. "You made it," she said simply. "Yes," Sam said, feeling the weight of the city and the sky on his shoulders, and knowing he could carry it. "I made it home." He was ready to get to work. His hands, which had just commanded a machine high above the clouds, were now ready to serve people right here on the ground. He realized that flying a plane and helping a person were the same job. In the end, getting them safely home. It only takes one moment of courage to change a person's life, and sometimes the smallest kindness, like a forgotten ticket voucher, can be the powerful engine that saves everyone. The storm was over, but the journey for Sam Walker, the quiet man from row 41B, had only just begun.